Koto Tamarikima. Welcome to Chapter 16, Through the Russian Zone of the Silver Sword. Lots of things have been happening pretty quickly to our family as they try to make their way to Switzerland. Jan certainly has been busy as well. So let's crack on and see what happens in Chapter 16. Take the Potsdam Road and follow your noses, the family were told, and off they went singing a happy song, with their heads in the air. If they had gone due west towards Belgium, they might have travelled more quickly, for this was the general direction of the traffic. Fewer refugees were moving south, so lifts were scarce, and they were on their feet most of the time. They crossed the Elbe near Rosslau by a bridge that had not been too badly damaged for the Russians to repair. Here they were held up for half a day by a spearhead of the Russian army bound, so rumour had it, for Prague to drive the Germans out of Czechoslovakia. Never before had Ruth seen so many soldiers. First came the tanks to clear the way. Next, column after column of marching soldiers, tired and dirty in their ragged uniforms. They came from the Ukraine and the Tatar republics, from the Ural Mountains and from the Caucasus, from the countries of the Baltic, from Siberia and Mongolia. Over the bridge they poured in their thousands, while everyone else stood to let them pass. "I know that song," cried Bronia, as she caught a snatch of a Cossack song from a group of soldiers. "Father taught it to us. Do you remember?" "Yes, I remember," said Ruth. "It was the summer we spent by the Dunjak River. We were on the raft floating downstream between the wooden peaks." She sighed as the tune was lost in another burst of singing. Standing there, they heard many songs, some of them bright and jolly, some of them slow and pointingly sad. The family squeezed over a bridge behind the last of the marching columns. They were hardly across when screaming horns announced the arrival of the staff cars, mostly Mercedes or Hawks, which had been taken from the Nazis. Next cars were secretaries' cars with war booty, fur coats, textiles, carpets, looted china, lorries with furniture, radios, refrigerators, food lorries with tons and tons of Russian delicacies, caviar, sturgeon, vodka, Crimean wine, lorries bearing proud welcome posters. "We welcome the liberating army." More marching columns. Columns of women and girls in grey-green uniform with tight blouses and high boots. They had come to do the cooking and the washing, to help in the hospitals and to look after the sick. Tagged onto them were clusters of small boys picked up from the woods and burnt-out villages. They had come because they were hungry and the Red Army was ready to feed them. "The whole world's gone by today. Surely there can't be any more people left," said Bronia, as the dust began to subside. But there was still the rear guard to come, and soon the dust was flying again under the wheels of hundreds of small light carts drawn by low Cossack horses. "Now for a lift," cried Jan, as a grey old man, whip in hand, came rattling by in a cart with a canvas roof. And before Ruth could stop him, he had hauled himself up over the tailboard. "We'll never catch him up. The carts are all too full," cried Ruth. But soon an open cart with nothing in the back but a heap of straw, some fodder, and a leg of smoked pork picked up the three of them. It was an anxious ride, for the cart was travelling more slowly than Jan's, and what with the dust and the overtaking and the spreading out into fields on either side of the road, they quickly lost sight of Jan. Jan was perfectly happy. He had landed on a pile of straw as comfortable as a feather bed, beside a sick soldier and a pen of squawking goose. And, if it was not worth his while to make the acquaintance of the soldier, he thought quite differently about the goose. All afternoon, Ruth and Edith kept a lookout for Jan's cart. As it happened, their vigilance proved unnecessary, for the whole caravan halted at dusk to camp for the night. Fires were kindled, stock replenished from nearby farms, and there was eating and drinking and singing. Jan was quickly found and forgiven. Next day, their ways parted, and the family cut across country in the direction of Bitterfield and Hale. Before they left, Berlin, the British soldiers had provided them with ration cards, and with the money he had given them, they were able to buy food. For recapturing the chimp, Jan had been rewarded with 100 marks. He entrusted this to Ruth, and did not question how she chose to spend it. When the last of the money ran out, they were dependent on what they could beg or work for. Work was difficult to find, for the factories were idle and the farms had absorbed the first prisoners of war to be released. Some villagers refused to admit them, having neither food nor shelter for any of the refugees. But for the most part, they were met with kindness and were not refused food if it could be spared. Most big towns had their own UNRRA food kitchens, and these were always welcome. But best of all were the transit camps. It was the time when the camp commandants used to send soldiers around with guns to seize stores. They ransacked warehouses, factory shops, even garrets and barns, for the peasants had hidden plenty away, and the slave workers that swelled the camps often knew the hiding places. One such camp had a Polish section, where a school had been started. Had the family stayed here, and they were pressed to do so, they would have received all the food and schooling and medical attention that they needed. Edith was very tired when they arrived, and Ruth was ready to stay as long as he needed rest. But he recovered after a few days and was eager to be off. Whenever he was tempted to linger, one peep at the silver sword was enough to spur him on again. All day long the sun smiled down upon them, upon toilers in the fields where fresh crops were springing, upon towns littered with the debris of war, upon a people numbed by defeat, living from day to day with no thought for the future, upon women standing in bread queues or wheeling barrows of wood that they had collected in the forest for their kitchen fires, upon wounded soldiers sitting on hospital balconies basking in the sun's heat. Some of the soldiers waved to the family as they passed by, and the family waved back. They came to the edge of the Russian zone. In the early days of peace, there were many places where it was not too difficult to slip unobserved from one zone to the next. They crossed the frontier somewhere in a Thurgarian forest without realizing they had done so, and it was only the unfamiliar uniforms of the soldiers and the strange language of the notices that told them they had now reached the American zone. Okay, work for today. Let's have a look. Right, I'll just get my computer organised here. So, what have we got? We've only got 4 questions today, but there's a bit of poetry to write today. And I want you to base it on the book. You may base it on a character. You might base it on the struggle. You might base it on one event. You might base it on a series of chapters. It's up to you. It's a structured poem. It's a pretty simple 6-slide poem. So read through the structure that's there, and see if you can be creative as you can. Be creative with your presentation. Let's get some nice poems with some great presentation work on there, ready to put on our class blog. Okay, I hope you enjoyed Chapter 16, and tomorrow we're looking at Chapter 17, The Signal. And Jan gets into a bit of trouble on this one. Okay, look forward to seeing you tomorrow.